Hello, I'm Ethan Muckelbauer, an attorney and VA accredited representative at CCK Law, and this is Mara Black, one of the firm partners. In this video, we'll be taking a look at some things that could change your compensation in 2025. We're assuming you already have a rating or that you expect to get one in 2025. So first up is COLA, or cost of living adjustment. We've talked in depth about the 2025 COLA increase in other videos and in our blog, but let's refresh quickly. So Mara, what is the 2025 cost of living adjustment for VA disability compensation?
So for 2025, VA increased disability compensation by 2.5%.
So, for example, how much more will a veteran with a 100% rating receive?
A veteran with a 100% rating and no dependents added to their award will get an additional $93.43 per month, which will bring the total monthly payment to $3,831.30.
Thanks, Mara. So next up are changes to the ratings. There are some big changes that are coming to some very common service-connected conditions.
That's right. In 2025, VA is expected to update the rating criteria for mental health conditions, for sleep apnea, and also for tinnitus.
So how will the changes to the rating criteria affect claims for sleep apnea and tinnitus?
It's a good question. We'll kind of have to wait and see, but what we know so far is that, first of all, claims submitted before the changes become effective will still be evaluated under the old diagnostic criteria and under the old regulation. So if you already have a claim pending, the changes may not affect your compensation, which is generally a good thing. The law provides that if you filed a claim and the law changes during the pendency of that claim, there's typically an assessment that VA has to do to decide whether the old or new criteria better suit the veteran's circumstances and maximize their benefits. It's a little speculative still. We're waiting, as Ethan said, for these updates to be made. So as we have more information, we'll have more videos on these changes. And so like we always say, keep an eye on our channel if this is the kind of thing you want to be following in the future.
And what about changes to the mental health condition ratings?
So the mental health criteria, from what we know, are being changed to be based more on a veteran's level of functioning rather than social and occupational impairment, which is the kind of main event focus of the existing regulations. So for mental health conditions, two of the biggest changes are that the 0% rating for a mental health condition that's service-connected is being eliminated. So all mental health ratings will be compensable. So that's a good change. And 70% and 100% ratings will no longer require proving a total inability to work, which means that the higher rating at the 100% rate, let's say, might be easier for more people to demonstrate a level of functioning consistent with that total rating and to keep a total rating, as opposed to the current codes, which talk about total occupational impairment, which is a pretty steep burden to meet.
So if a veteran has an existing mental health rating that might be upgraded under these new criteria, what should they do?
If anyone thinks that their rating should be higher for a mental health condition, they should also consider filing an increased rating claim. Keep in mind that a new claim could result in a compensation and pension or C&P exam. That could result in a re-examination of your existing rating, and so with that comes a risk of a potential reduction. This is always something to keep in mind when balancing, should you file something for increased compensation, or should you kind of stick with what you have given the risk of reevaluation? And if you're nervous about jeopardizing your existing rating by filing an increased rating claim, we definitely encourage you to talk with a VA accredited representative. Someone like that can help you evaluate your chances and prepare evidence and get ahead of those concerns that do exist as part of the process.
Thanks, Mara. So now let's talk about the updates to the veteran caregiver support programs. So there are actually two major developments here.
Yes, correct. The first is that VA is expanding the definition of serious injury, which is one of the many criteria within the caregiver program qualifications. So this may help more caregivers qualify for the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, or the PCAFC, which provides support programs and a stipend for eligible caregivers for veterans. So for example, caregivers of veterans with TDIU ratings may qualify, which is a pretty significant change and might be very meaningful to a lot of our clients and a lot of veterans out there in particular.
Yeah, definitely. So what about the Dole Act? What is it and how will it affect caregivers?
So this is a new one for us, but the Dole Act was passed in December of 2024. And while it has a lot of provisions, it expands VA support for home nursing care and home caregivers in many ways. We actually have a separate blog and video on the Dole Act, so if you want to get more into those particulars, we encourage you to check out those materials, especially if you're a veteran with a caregiver.
Thanks, Maura. So next up, how have the GI Bill benefits changed?
So previously, VA used to limit veterans to 36 months of GI Bill benefits, even if they were eligible for both the Montgomery and post 9/11 GI Bills, which are two separate GI Bills. Following the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in the Rudisill case in 2024, VA changed its rules, and so now veterans may qualify for up to 48 months of combined benefits instead of the old cap of 36 months of GI Bill benefits. That was kind of the prevailing way that VA was deciding those types of claims.
So what's an example of how someone might be eligible for both GI Bills?
A common example is a veteran who served at least 2 terms, one before September 11th, 2001, and one after. And in that situation, dual qualification might be there.
Will VA contact veterans who qualify for the new GI Bill benefits?
Yes. What we know is that VA is reaching out to eligible veterans, so I would expect that those who qualify would get something in the mail from the VA probably.
Great. So let's move on to upcoming legislation. Are there any new veterans law related proposals on the horizon?
I feel like the answer is always yes to this, but at this point in time in particular, we're watching for more updates from the new presidential administration.
Do you have any ideas about what Congress might be considering?
So, the Congressional Budget Office has been researching several options related to veterans lately. And before we get into those, we need to emphasize these are not pieces of proposed legislation in any way. This is interesting information. It can sometimes be concerning to people to hear about the things that could be on the horizon for changes. But these are all just ideas that we're seeing out there. This is not tied to actually pending introduced legislation. So heavy disclaimer on that. The examples of things that we have read about include proposals to reduce disability compensation for high-income households, limiting disability benefits for veterans past the Social Security retirement age, excluding veterans with low disability ratings, taxing disability compensation. These are proposed changes or proposed ideas that are out there. These are not pieces of proposed legislation, I'll say that again, or specific recommendations. These are just the things that the Congressional Budget Office or the CBO is researching and that could potentially yield some updates in the future, maybe.
All right, so that's a lot of changes, so we'll wrap things up there. Don't forget, if you're estimating compensation or considering filing a claim with VA, we have up-to-date tools on our website that could help, like the VA Disability Calculator, the Back Pay Calculator, and the VA Claim Builder. And if you ever disagree with a VA decision, consider contacting CCK Law for a free case evaluation. We're here to help. Take care.